Indonesia in the early 1950s, a young nation struggling to define itself amidst internal strife and external challenges. After achieving independence from the Dutch colonial rule in 1949, the republic faced immense instability, political turmoil, and the daunting task of uniting a diverse archipelago of over 17,000 islands. This is the story of Indonesia's turbulent journey between 1950 and 1955. In December 1949, the Dutch formally transferred sovereignty to the United States of Indonesia. However, this federal structure was short-lived. By August 1950, the Republic of Indonesia dissolved the federal system, establishing itself as a unitary state under a parliamentary democracy. But the transition wasn't smooth. Political parties with vastly different ideologies competed for power. Islamic groups, leftist movements, and nationalists clashed in their visions for the future. Adding to the instability, Indonesia saw rapid changes in its cabinets. Between 1950 and 1955, there were no fewer than 5 different prime ministers and cabinets. Each administration faced immense pressure from competing political factions, making it difficult to implement consistent policies. This constant turnover undermined public trust and hampered efforts to address pressing national issues. The first cabinet under the unitary state was led by Muhammad Natsir from the Masyumi party. The Natsir cabinet focused on consolidating national unity and rebuilding the economy. However, it faced immediate challenges including regional discontent, rebellion from groups like Darul Islam, and tensions with Netherlands over West Papua. Despite Natsir's effort to centralize administration, the cabinet fell in March 1951 due to a lack of parliamentary support, particularly from nationalist and leftist parties. Succeeding Natsir was Sukiman Wirosanyoyo. His cabinet was also dominated by the Masyumi party. It focused on strengthening ties with Western nations, a move that led to significant opposition from the left-leaning factions. The signing of the US-sponsored Mutual Security Act was seen as many as aligning Indonesia with the Western Bloc interest, contrary to its non-aligned aspirations. The controversy weakened Sukiman's position, and his cabinet collapsed in early 1952. Wilopo, a member of the Indonesian National Party or PNI, sought to balance competing factions and address the pressing economic issues. His tenure was marked by labor unrest and regional demands for autonomy. The cabinet's inability to resolve the Tanjung Morawa conflict, a violent clash between landowners and peasants in North Sumatra, led to its downfall. The Wilopo cabinet's failure to address these tensions underscored the fragile state of Indonesia's political system. Ali Sastroamidjojo's first cabinet, also led by the PNI, prioritized Indonesia's international standing. This period saw the historic Asian-Africa Conference in Bandung of 1955, which positioned Indonesia as the leader of the non-aligned movement. However, domestically, the cabinet struggled with ongoing rebellions and economic instability. Factionalism within parliament further weakened its ability to govern effectively. The rapid turnover of cabinets in Indonesia's early years of independence reflected deep-seated political divisions. Each administration faced the monumental task of unifying a diverse nation, navigating ideological conflicts, and addressing urgent economic and social issues. While the frequent cabinet changes hindered stability, they also highlight Indonesia's resilience and determination of its leaders to lay the foundations for a cohesive and independent state. One of the most significant threats to Indonesia's stability came from the Darul Islam movement, which began in West Java in 1949. Led by Kartosoewirjo, Darul Islam sought to establish an Islamic state. By the early 1950s, this rebellion spread to regions like Aceh, South Sulawesi, and South Kalimantan. The rebellion's tactics included guerrilla warfare and acts of terror, targeting both government forces and civilians. It posed a serious challenge to the central government's authority, especially as raw resources were stretched thin. Civil unrest wasn't limited to armed rebellion. Regional leaders in areas like Sumatra and Sulawesi demanded greater autonomy, feeling neglected by the central government in Java. Economic disparities and the lack of infrastructure fueled these tensions, leading to sporadic protests and strikes. Amidst internal chaos, Indonesia played a pivotal role on the global stage. In April 1955, Bandung, West Java, became the site of the Asia-Africa Conference. Leaders from 29 newly independent countries gathered to discuss solidarity, economic cooperation, and resistance to colonialism. The Bandung Conference was a defining moment for Indonesia, showcasing its leadership in the non-aligned movement and affirming its place in the international community. But back home, the government struggled to translate this diplomatic success into domestic stability. The central government's efforts to maintain unity often came at a high cost. Military operations against Darul Islam were intensified, leading to heavy casualties on both sides. Meanwhile, political bickering in Jakarta made it difficult to address pressing issues like poverty and economic recovery. Despite the challenges, this period laid the groundwork for Indonesia's resilience. Leaders like Sukarno envisioned a united and prosperous nation even as they faced immense obstacles. The years between 1950 and 1955 were a critical chapter in Indonesia's history. They were years of struggle, but also of determination and hope. From the shadow of rebellion to the global spotlight in Bandung, Indonesia's journey reminds us of the challenges and triumphs of building a nation.
Asian and African peoples can meet together in their own countries to discuss and deliberate upon matters of common concern. In spite of diversity that exists among its participants, let this conference be a great success. Yes, there is diversity among us. Who denies it? Small and great nations are represented here, with people professing almost every religion under the sun. Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, Confucianism, Hinduism, Jainism, Sikhism, Zoroastrianism, Shintoism, and others. Almost every political faith we encounter here. Democracy, monarchism, theocracy, with innumerable variants, and practically every economic doctrine has its representative in this hall. Marxism, socialism, capitalism, communism, in all their manifold variations and combinations. But again, what harm is in diversity when there is unity in desire? This conference is not to oppose each other. It is a conference of brotherhood.
So we got my friend here, Alex. Uh, So I want to ask you, what is your opinions on the 1955 Asia-Africa Conference and Indonesia's participation in UN and their Cold War stance?
Well, I mean, like, I think the conference itself is like really important, right? I mean, like, this is probably one of the first international conferences held by Indonesia, and obviously this time was like really volatile between like the Soviet Union and the United States, and a lot of countries are being dragged into these proxy wars being supported by either of these nations, right? So a lot of them like wanted to keep like their sort of, I guess you could say independence, but it's not really like they're not really like annexing or anything.
Yeah.
But it was really important because like they sort of like banded together against this sort of thing to make sure that they weren't being used to sort of like like sort of like increase like the influence of like like these like ideals, communism, like democracy, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Alright. Alright, that's the answer. Thank you very much, Alex. We'll see you
No
next
worries.
time, guys.
This has been a look into brief history of Indonesia's forging of a nation, a testament to the resilience of its people and the complexities of its path to unity. Thank you very much for watching.